and welcome to the sew along for the Penelope, a 3-in-1 style that includes a teddy, a bodysuit, as well as a panty. It has vertical seams on the bra cups, it has a V-wire separator, it has adjustable shoulder straps, and a closure in the center back. In this sew along, I'll be going over all the sewing steps, plus what fabric you should have, what pattern pieces you have cut out for which fabrics, as well as those little tips and tricks that I cannot convey via sewing instructions and pictures, and I can only just show them to you on a camera or in a sew along like this. What I won't be going over is fit, but what I will be going over are some fitting techniques, especially for full bust and plus size. And I want to show you, if you've made the Brooklyn or the Barrett bralettes, the bra cups on the Penelope are based on that. And I want to show you that, plus the adjustments that we made for a full bust fit model, how we combine a larger cup size with a smaller front bodysuit piece. This is super helpful and a technique that we use a lot when combining sizes when a pattern doesn't come in cup sizes. So a common technique that we use when a pattern doesn't have cup sizes such as A, B, C, D, E cup is that we combine the sizes. So we will combine a 2X bra cup with a extra small back band. So I want to show you how we did that, because I think if you see it, you will understand it so much better, and you'll be able to do it for your Penelope if you are full busted. First, let's go over what fabrics you should have, as well as what pattern pieces you have cut out for which fabrics. Now, it was so hard to write the supply list for the Penelope. I cannot tell you how many times I wrote it and then rewrote it and then edited it and then went back. I was like, this doesn't make sense. This is gonna make them so confused, but hear me out. The main fabric and the lining fabric for the front teddy and the front bodysuit can be stretch or non-stretch. The reason being is that for the teddy, it is supposed to be loose fitting. It is not supposed to be a bodycon. Now, it can be tight if you make a size that's smaller than your measurements, yes, but the way that it was intended is that it is loose fitting. So if it's loose fitting, you can use a stretch or a non-stretch. At the time of the release of this pattern, we had a purple Penelope that came out. That fabric was a non-stretch Swiss dot. This black one that we have here is stretch fabric. When we fit it on our fit model, it fit exactly the same, regardless of whether it's stretch or non-stretch. A lot of it will have to do with whether your non-stretch fabric has a little bit of mechanical stretch to it. It's more important in the bodysuit, which is a little bit more form-fitting, but I do want to call out that it can be stretch or non-stretch. You might have to adjust your sizing. If you're using a non-stretch, maybe you want to size up. If you are using a stretch, maybe size down or make the size that is recommended for you. But with any lingerie pattern, I always suggest just making a very quick mock-up, especially the bra cups, because that's the portion that fits that needs to fit and is most critical. The bodysuit portion, the teddy portion, is a lot easier to fit. But always make up a quick little just the bra cups to see are you in the ballpark of yes, is this gonna fit, or no, I'm gonna be spilling on all sides. So pattern piece number 1. Pattern piece number 2, I have the main fabric and the lining fabric. So I have this black Swiss dot as well as the stretch mesh. If you are full busted, I highly recommend using a power net lining for your bra cups. Then you have your 1A and 2A, which is the center front bra cup overlay and the side front bra cup overlay. Key thing here is that you have the scallop lace along this edge as well as along this edge. Please don't put along that edge, because that's wrong, and then you're gonna have a raw edge here, and that's just not gonna be very pretty. And then if you want to be a super sewist and match up the scallop edges on your scallop laces, by all means do it. But that is what you should have cut out for pattern piece number 1, number 2, 1A, 2A. Moving on to the front bodysuit, pattern piece number 3, as well as front bodysuit overlay, pattern piece number 3A. For the front bodysuit, it is the main fabric and then lined with the lining fabric. Something that I forgot to mention when I was talking about the bra cups is that for the main fabric and the lining fabric, the stretch mesh, before I cut out anything, I spray basted the main fabric and the lining fabric together with Otiv's 505 spray adhesive. That is like my BFF in lingerie making. If you do a quick Google search or search on YouTube, you will see that I use it a lot in bra making to adhere 2 layers of fabric together. That way they're not shifting. So if you are not familiar with Otiv's, take a quick search and look that up. Next is the front bodysuit overlay, which is the scalloped edge of the lace is along this edge. And since I'm on this pattern piece, I did want to call out 2 fantastic questions that came up when the pattern first came out. Was the V-wire. So the Penelope takes the size 65 V-wire from Madeline. And the reason why I don't say in the supply list size 65 V-wire is that a size 65 V-wire at Madeline could be a different size than a size 65 V-wire at whatever shop. So I do my best not to give what size it is, but I give the specs of it. So in the Penelope pattern, there are specs of what the V-wire should be. Now, let's just say you live in another country, you can't order from Madeline, and you're like, I can only get a V-wire that is like this long or whatever, and it's another size. Don't worry, you can adjust this V opening to match your V-wire. I don't want you to think that just because you can't get a hold of the V-wire that we use, or you live in a country where you only get a V-wire that goes up to here, that you can't make the Penelope. So what is important is that when I lay this over the V opening, you can see that first of all, it's a little curved, and this is straight, which is fine. Perfection is overrated. It doesn't have to match perfectly. But what's most important is that this is where it's going to sit, because you're going to clip right in here, is that it's like a 1/2 inch from this top edge. So let's just say that your V-wire only comes up to here. You're going to have to shift that up, and you have to make your V-wire a little bit shorter, your V opening. So you can adjust your pattern to match whatever V-wire you have. Second thing is that somebody asked that the supply list didn't call for shallow demi underwires. These are type of underwires that we have in our web shop at the time of this filming. I don't know when you are watching this. And we did not add this to the supply list for the Penelope because, one, again, the teddy is very loose fitting. It's supposed to be an easy piece. So we felt that this was kind of unnecessary. And even for the bodysuit, when we tried it on the fit model, we had one with, one without. She couldn't even notice. But if you really want to use an underwire, we did not draft it for the shallow demi underwire. So, but looking, this is a size 8, and I'm just holding it up. I just grabbed these from our box. The shape is pretty on. During the development, like I knew that we didn't want the shallow demi underwire, so I wasn't even concerned about it. But this is like matching the shape pretty well. It's way too long, but the U shape is pretty much matching. So if you are using a shallow demi underwire, you will want to find the size that you have that fits your size, and make sure there's about a 1/2 inch wiggle room here and a 1/2 inch wiggle room here. If you need to adjust the curve of this wire seam line to match your shallow demi underwire, do that, because you want the shape of the shallow demi underwire to mirror the shape of the wire seam line. You might have to, depending on how much you add to it, and if your fabric is stretch or non-stretch, you might also have to adjust the curve of the bra cups to accommodate for that. giving you a little visual here without it looking too messy, but if you take a little bit out of here, you're gonna have to add it back to the cups. But if it's just minor, you might be able to get away with it. But I did want to answer those two questions since we have this all laid out, give you a visual of that because they are two great questions that I'm sure if one person has, a lot of other people have. Moving right along, next is back band pattern piece number 4 and back bodysuit pattern piece number 5. A lot of people get really confused about what combo fabric means. All combo fabric means is that it's a combination fabric. So let's just take a color block design, for example. You have like your main fabric, which might be red, and then you have your combo fabric, which is kind of also your main fabric, but like a combination fabric that's used with your main fabric, but usually to a lesser extent. So like your main fabric is the one you use most, and then your combo fabric is like another main fabric, but one that's used less. Biggest thing with pattern piece number 4 and number 5 is that this must stretch. So regardless of whether you use a stretch or non-stretch for the front bra cups, the front teddy, this has to stretch. This is where if this doesn't stretch, but you use a non-stretch for the front, you're not gonna be able to get this over your hips. It's gonna be super uncomfortable. So I actually cut this out of our main fabric and our combo fabric just to show you that you can use one or the other. Your lining fabric too, this is a black stretch mesh, and the lining fabric on the front bodysuit is a beige stretch mesh. So your lining fabric and your combo fabric can be the same. People get really confused by that as well, so I want to call that out. But biggest thing here is that your back piece has to stretch in order for it to be comfortable and for you to be able to put it on. Now let's move on to pattern piece number 6, which is the front teddy. So whatever I say here about front teddy number 6 also applies to the back teddy. It's just so big that I can't fit it on the camera. Now, one thing I wanted to call out about these two pattern pieces is that the way that it was drafted has a very minimal shearing. And that is because your fabric might not be wide enough. And I didn't want to discourage anybody that they couldn't make the teddy because they didn't have fabric that was wide enough. But as you can see here is that here is the fold right here. What I did, I just added a little bit more shearing, and this was the whole width of the fabric. So if you want a super gathered sheared look, add that length or that width to the pattern piece. If you want like super minimal shearing, you don't like that whole gathered look, you cut it out as it was drafted. For all the samples that we made at the time of the release, we did add a little bit of gathering to it, knowing that I would call it out in the sew along that if you wanted more, so that it matches what the kits look like, then to add a little bit more shearing. But that is totally up to you. Moving on to the panty, totally lost the pattern piece for the front panty. I think it's number 9. No, it must be number 8 or maybe 11. But it is whatever number it is. It is the main fabric and the lining fabric spray basted together. Back panty, which is number 10, this should be combo fabric, but I wanted to show you that it could be your main fabric too. What is key about number 10, same thing with the back bodysuit number 4 and 5, was that this must stretch. Do not cut this out of a non-stretch fabric. So even though the pattern says combo fabric, which is like a combination fabric, it can be your main fabric, assuming that it is stretch. And then you have your two side front panty panels. Make sure that the scallop lace is along this edge and not along any of the other edges. Don't worry, I always cut it out wrong, so I'm like, oh man, that's totally not gonna work. So just make sure you have your scalloped edge on the correct edge of the pattern. And then your gusset, which I didn't call this out in the bodysuit, but there also is a gusset for the bodysuit. But honestly, as I'm sewing it, I usually cut it out. Now let's go over the supplies needed for the Penelope. I already went over the V-wire, but I'm going to keep it here just for supply sake, as well as the shallow demi underwires. Going from right to left, you have your shoulder strap elastic, which are used for your shoulder straps. I have 2 fold over elastics here. As we go through the sew along, it'll be more clear which one you should use where, especially if you're plus size versus full bust, or if you're petite or a straight size. Your underwire channeling, this is for sewing on the V-wire. It encases the V-wire. If you're using the shallow demi underwire, it's going to encase that as well. A barrel closure as well as a hook and eye. If you purchase a DIY kit and you got both and you're like, wait a second, like where am I supposed to use these? So the barrel closure is used for the teddy. The hook and eye is used for the bodysuit. We went back and forth of whether we should include an option of whether to get the hook and eye versus the barrel closure. But sometimes when you buy a DIY kit, you don't know what you're going to make, the teddy or the bodysuit. So we just included both. So if you got both in your DIY kit, don't freak out and be like, why did I get 2? Where are they supposed to be used? We just wanted to give you the option. Your rings and sliders, which your rings and sliders should match the width of your strap elastic. Could be like an eighth of an inch bigger, but not a big deal. Then you have your wide band elastic, which is only used for the teddy, not for the bodysuit. Now, before we start sewing, let's go over patterns. Again, this sew along won't be going over fits, but there are 2 things that I think are super important as well as super helpful to call out so that you get the right size in the Penelope. Here I have the Penelope pattern piece number 1 and number 2, the side front and the center front cup. I also have the Barrett bralette, which is also the Brooklyn bralette from Madeline's book, Sew Lingerie. So if you have made the Brooklyn bralette or the Barrett bralette, I want to show you that the cups of the Penelope are based on the cups of the Barrett and the Brooklyn. So if you fit those bras, you're like ahead of the game. You're like 3 steps ahead. So I'm going to lay the center front cup of the Penelope over the center front cup of the Brooklyn bralette. And as you can see, this one just dips up a little bit because there's more of a curvature in the Penelope, but it is based off of the Barrett, the Brooklyn. If you look at the side fronts, if I lay the Penelope, or let's do it the other way, if I lay the Barrett / Brooklyn over the Penelope, you will see that the curve is exactly the same. In the Brooklyn, there's a side panel of combo fabric, so that's why this is chopped off. But if I lay it over the original Barrett, you will see that they are so similar. We just curve this up, same way we curve up the other one because it has a wire seam line versus like a solid straight bands. So I think that is very helpful for people that have already made the Barrett. Also, I think it's really helpful from like a pattern company standpoint that when you make each pattern, there are some similarities or it's based off of another style, so you don't have to refit it every single time. Next, let's discuss the Penelope for full bust. If you are full busted, which means you have a 4/5 or more inch difference between your full bust and your under bust or your rib cage, you may have looked at that size chart and been like, oh my goodness, it's telling me, according to the size chart, I should make a 2X. I'm like a medium. Why is it telling me to make a 2X? Most likely you are full busted. So your full bust measurement is rather large compared to your rib cage measurement. If you are one of those people, a technique that we use in patterns, and I can't say this for all companies, but definitely for Madeline patterns, is that if a style is available in alpha sizes, but does not come in cup sizes, if you are full busted, you will use your full bust measurement to cut out your bra cups, but you will use your rib cage measurement to cut out your back bands pieces. And in this case, it's going to be your front bodysuit as well. That way it'll give you enough coverage in the bra cups to fit your full bust, but also be snug enough on your rib cage and, in this case, waist and hips for the bodysuit, so it's not super big on you. If you look at the instructions for the Penelope, The person who was on the cover of the instructions is full busted. She measures 38, 39, depending on the time of day, time of month, for her full bust, and then a 31/30.5 for her rib cage. So she is 100% full busted. So what we do for her, when we cut out her pattern, we use the 2X for the center front bra cup and the side front bra cup, as well as the overlays. And then for the bodysuit portion, you will see here that I cut out the 2X on for the wire seam so that it fits into the cups, but it blends into the medium for the hips and the waist. And I also did that for the back piece so that it would match up. So my point being is that if you are full busted, you might have to blend your sizes. Don't freak out. You will just use a larger cup size, 2X, 3X, and then combine it with like a medium, small, maybe even a large teddy or bodysuit. Now let's move on to the first step in sewing. And this is gonna be the only sewing step for this video because it's just getting your like sewing juices going. So the first step is to take your lace overlays on the bra cups, as well as the front teddy, just because the frame is already pretty full with pattern pieces. I don't have enough room to fit the front teddy on here, but you will repeat this step for the front teddy. So you will lay the lace overlays on top, and then you'll pin them in place along the scalloped edge. And what is key here is that when you sew them down, you are going along the scalloped edge, not in a straight line. So this is where you should be after doing this step. The lace overlays are sewn down to the front bralettes, center front and side. And what's key here, now I didn't have very pronounced scallops, so my zigzag stitches don't really, they kind of look like a straight line, but there is a little bit of curve to them, so I did put my needle down and pivot. But what you don't want is like a straight line, especially if you have like a really pronounced scalloped edge, because then you get like a little lip there, and it just looks a little bit neater when it's like on the outline of the scalloped edge. Now there was a lot of information in this video, so I'm going to leave it there, and in the next video we will get into a lot more of the sewing.